There we go. Finally. That's what happens when you have a lot of windows open. They're all over the place. I wanted to just do a quick thing about inspections, whether you're starting now or whether you know what you're doing. I wanted to make sure that you don't struggle with this and have the basics. When you're going to do your first inspections, have an idea of why you're going in. If it's just checking to make sure that you have brood in all stages and that your queen is laying, that's probably the most common reason you want to go in. Just if you find eggs and larvae and capped brood, you have brood in all stages. You don't have to find the queen. When the colony is small, whether it's a nuke or a package, it's usually pretty simple to find the queen. She's in the middle of the brood nest. But if you see eggs and larvae and that's all you're really after, then meet the objective and go through and then make sure you take a note of what you saw. Do your first inspection within a week and then every 10 to 14 days, checking the food, monitoring the progress. Look for wonky comb. And what I mean by that is if they're not building the comb properly, make sure that uh, that you fix it quickly. Don't let them go off on a tangent of building a whole frame. If you find some wedge that they're not building horizontal and flush with the frame, and they're building out to the other comb, cut it off quickly and, have them fix it. Check if you're running plastic foundation to ensure that have a nice coating on all of them. And sometimes as they go through, if they're at a lack of wax builders, they'll strip the wax off the outside ones. So pull an outside frame, even if there's nothing going on there, and look at the wax coating and make sure that they continue uh, to have a coating there. And if not, you may have to pull it out and add some wax to it. When you're doing it, the most frustrating thing as a new beekeeper or even as a veteran is to get stung, and it comes from crushing bees. So if you're going to insert your hive tool, give a little smoke where you're going to put it in. Set your covers down gently, give them time to get out of the way. I like to lay the cover down, but not all the way. Stop like a half to a quarter inch, and then pick it up and put it down and pick it up and put it down, and just put pressure on any of the bees that are either on the top edge of the box or in the way from the frames. And then once you do that 3 or 4 times, just kind of tap them. They move them out of the way, and then you could just lay the inner cover down or put the box down on top when you get there. You could even go through with your fingers and flick the bees off if they're being stubborn and not getting out of the way for you. This is how we tell you to do a hive tool entry. And I've seen veteran beekeepers who don't know this and for whatever reason never were taught it. And I want to make sure that everybody knows how to do this properly. So you're going to smoke this area where you're going to put your hive tool, and then you're going to smoke the other side. We like you to pull frame number 2, not frame number 1. When you pull frame number 1 and the box is full, now when you're first starting out, you probably don't have this. You would crush bees against the outside edge back here. So if you pull frame 2, it's bees against this frame and bees against that frame, and bees on bees, they kind of get out of the way. So a little smoke here, little smoke there. Put your hive tool in and give it a twist. And I'm talking about the curved blade. Pull this frame back. Do the same thing with the next one. And you pull frame 1 out of the way. Then you'll do the same thing with frame 2. Pull it into the gap that you created and reach underneath with the flat blade end. Turn your hive tool around and pry it up. And you'll be able to pull that frame out. Once you have the frame out, you have a gap. We recommend using one of these frame hangers. Hang it on the frame hanger. Keep it away from the box so that the bees don't crawl off the face and onto the wood, because then you'll have bees trying to come up the wood and go across the top edge to get back in the hive, and you'll crush them. So set it away, and you have this gap to work with. And the important thing is, this is your inspection gap. Now, if you want to look at frame one, you could pull it out into the gap and look at it and then put it back. Frame two is going to be hanging over here, and you could pull frame three into the gap. So you take your hive tool, if it's stuck together, and you give it a little twist, inspect three. And if you want, you can put three back into the space and just keep moving the gap until you get through what you want. Is that clear? It's really a great way not to smash bees. I mean, that first frame, you need to be really slow when you draw it out, deliberately slow, up and out. Let the bees get out of the way as you're pulling the frame out, and then put it on the hanger. Now, I like to take three and put it back, four and put it back, five and put it back, and I move the gap over to what I'm trying to work on so I have room to pull this out. And then when the time comes that I want to put them back, I take the blade end curve, I put it in the center, and since these frames were all freed up, you could just push them right back in and tighten everything up. Then you take frame two and you put it back. Then you take your hive tool and you put it here, and you put it here when all the frames are back, and you pull everything back together. Make sure that all the shoulders are tight across and that the frames are centered in between. Don't leave a big gap on this end and make this end really tight to the wall. Have an equal gap on both sides when you're building out a brand new hive. We'd like you to use these internal feeders, especially when the hive is brand new. And when you want to feed, you just put a little smoke in the entrance, a little smoke in the hole, and you pry the inner cover off, and you don't really have to take it off. You just slide it over and pour the food in and then slide it back. You don't need to take it off. After a while, if this box is building out and you want to deliver more food, you could switch to a top cover. Looks like this. Don't go crazy with filling the thing up with gallons of liquid. Put a quart in, a couple pints, see if they take it down. If they do take it down, good. If they don't take it down, slow down what you're feeding. Remember that they're on a nectar flow right now, so they're going to get as much food as they need, probably from, from whatever they're foraging. But on the other hand, if they're building a lot of wax, it requires a lot of carbohydrate, and they may suck this down for you. And you might do better with a top feeder. The advantage of a top feeder, when you have it sealed from the top, make sure you tape off any of the notches so none of the bees can get in, is you take the roof off, you take the closed inner cover off of it, and you pour the liquid in, and then you close everything up, and you don't need to open the hive. No bees get out. So when it gets to the point of feeding, especially when you get to the second box, you're better with a top feeder, and that's what we recommend when the weather is warmer. Now, the last thing to say is don't overfeed. If you're seeing liquid stored in the cells with the brood like this, you've got too much. If there's no place for the queen to lay, that's going to be detrimental to the growth of your colony. So look in your brood nest for any liquid stored in and amongst the brood. And if you see that, you're feeding too much. So that's it. I did not want to go any further than that tonight with giving you heads up. I wanted to leave room for your questions. And we've been trying to get out of here before 9 o'clock every time, but we haven't been successful, which is okay because you got lots of questions. So I'm okay with that. And with that, I'll open the floor. Anybody have any questions for tonight?
Yeah, I do. With the 1-to-1 sugar water that you're making, if I make up a gallon of it and I'm not going to use that much of it, is it okay to refrigerate it as long as you make sure it comes to room temperature or warmer when you put it back in, when you feed the hive?
Yeah, that's fine. You could preserve it a little better if it stays in the fridge.
It's like simple syrup for cocktails, so.
Right. Yeah, and if you don't have use for it, they're not taking it, you can make yourself a cocktail. I will share with you all that I put a swarm trap out, a couple of them on my property, and the first swarm moved into one of my boxes today. So if you have extra equipment and brood frames, put them out, give them a little squirt of Swarm Commander, and chances are you might get lucky and pull something in.
I gotta thank you for your tip on insulating the hives. That this year is the first year probably in a long time that I had bees come April. So I
Good.
used the 2-inch insulation, wrapped them all up, and 3 out of 5 made it.
Nice. Do you have insulation on the top over the inner
I
cover?
did. I did.
Good.
And it's funny, they all moved from the bottom box to the top box, and they
Yeah.
were all kind of right underneath that insulation.
Yeah, leave that insulation on. When you take your insulation off for the year, for the summer,
Oh,
leave the top one on over your
okay.
inner cover.
All right. I
During the
took it off.
summer,
I'll go
when the
put it
heat
back.
is beating down on the hive, they have to cool the colony, and that insulation helps the heat from penetrating in below the roof and
Okay.
keeps them makes the job for them cooling the interior a little easier. And then of course in the wintertime it holds the heat a little better.
Well, thanks.
Yeah. Where are you, Michael?
I'm in Flemington.
Oh
I
yeah,
live in
okay.
Hillsborough, but I have a small farm in Flemington, um, up off of Oak Grove.
Okay. And what do your colonies look like? Did you do swarm prevention?
Um, I went in about a week ago and I was just looking for bias, right? And making
Mm,
sure that there were no swarm cells. Because the only other year that I had a colony make it through the winter, they swarm.
yeah.
So I'm hoping to have actually colonies in June. Fingers crossed.
So have you put honey supers on?
Yes, I put
Okay.
honey supers. Yeah. So we'll see. I did not see. I usually don't see the queen, but I always look to make sure there's bias in there and that there's no swarm cells. And if that's good, that's usually good for me.
Yeah. Are the colonies like roof to ceiling or roof to floor, side to side full?
No, no. The outside of 1 and 10 were not built out, but I was just worried about swarming, so I put another box on top just to hopefully take that pressure away.
Yeah. Okay. If the outside is the frames aren't built, is that what you said? I
Yeah,
missed
they weren't
part
all
of
the
that.
way drawn out.
Yeah. So take those frames and rotate them in now. This is the time of year when they're on the nectar flow that the wax building bees will come when they get the right age, and they hopefully will build those frames out, but bring them closer to the nest. They don't love it when you put it right in the middle of the nest, but if you put it in the fringe, they typically build them out pretty quickly for you.
Okay.
And take frames that are, 2 or 3, 7 or 8, and move them to the outside, and they'll store honey in those as they start to build.
Okay.
I'm assuming you have drones, right?
I didn't see many. There were a lot of capped, there were a lot of fresh larvae in there, but yeah, I didn't see many drones.
Okay. Yeah, mine are full of drones. My
Huh.
drones are all out and done and ready to go.
Okay.
They've been in there for a couple weeks, so
I'm hopefully going to get a chance to check this weekend, if the weather permits. That I'll see what's going on again.
got it. Okay. I wanted to check in with Doug. Got anything you need to talk about?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yep.
We had a swarm a couple weeks ago, which I was able to catch, and it's the first time I've sort of successfully caught one where they stuck around. Well, I've caught a swarm previously, but then like a day later they buzzed off somewhere else. But I was able to catch the swarm, and then very quickly we started off with 2 hives. One
Hmm.
of them swarmed. I was able to catch it. and brought it to a friend's farm, who about 5 miles from where they currently are. And then this later that week, we decided to split the other hive because we felt like maybe that hive would swarm as well. So we split that hive and brought that split to a friend's farm. We requeened this the hive that was left after the swarm, and then we requeened the split that we brought. And so I think we haven't gone in to inspect anything since then because we just kind of
Did
wanted
you
to
do
let.
that with queens that you purchased?
Correct.
Okay.
And we haven't yet gone in to sort of see if we could find the queen in the hives that we were assuming had them. We just kind of wanted to leave everybody be after the upheaval.
Mhm.
But we're thinking about going in this weekend and poking around and seeing what we can see. The question I have actually is, we had been the past 2.5 years or so, working with hives with one deep box and then two mediums on top for bee
Okay.
space.
Mhm.
And we for the first time ran into the possible pitfalls of that when we had a lot of, uh, you know, the queen was really up in the top two boxes, laying all the brood in the top two mediums,
Yeah.
and it made me feel very puzzled about how we were going to maybe do a split if she wasn't laying down in the bottom. Anyway, we're thinking about transitioning to a double deep. We did it. We put two deeps into one hive, and I don't know. I just thought I would ask your opinions about that. Maybe you could talk about what are the benefits of doing two deeps, because it feels like things might be easier to manage if we had two deeps. Then like the brood chambers become interchangeable. You could sort of switch them
Right.
top to bottom more easily. And I suddenly was struck with the wisdom of it this year. And we're thinking about transitioning. Of course, there's the weight and all that stuff, but I don't know. If you had any thoughts about that, I would love to hear it.
So one of the reasons, as you cited, is two deeps. Generally, you don't lift those boxes, right? They're meant for the brood nest. Many beekeepers will tell you that once a colony is established, they don't go down into that bottom box. It just kind of is there for the colony to use. When you have a deep and two mediums, one or the other, deterrence to that is you have a top bar and a bottom bar on the frame, and then you have a top bar and a bottom bar, and then you have a top bar and a lot of space and a bottom bar. The separation of three different frames, one, you're using 10 more frames than normal. You're a little taller, and the boxes are interchangeable when you want to move and rearrange everything.
Right, right.
So that the conventional path is to use two deeps or three mediums. That would be your other option, is to go
mediums.
medium hive.
I see.
A lot of beekeepers these days are heading actually more in that direction, because then your equipment is interchangeable for honey supers and whatever flexibility you need. It really opens the door. Additionally, you don't have lifting of heavy boxes. Lifting a double, you know, a deep off of yeah, I don't know. I I look at somebody like Bob, who's a small in stature, right? He it's pretty heavy lifting a full size deep full of bees. It
Yeah,
gets really heavy. And then, when you're trying to pick that thing up and put it down, you end up crushing bees and struggling with it. And when you put it back and the hive is absolutely boiling with bees, it's difficult not to crush bees and whatever. So dealing with the weight factor of it, a lot of people have gone to three mediums instead of two deeps. And
mm,
since you have two mediums and a deep, maybe you split the difference. Maybe you do one hive with a double deep and one hive with three mediums and see how you like it. And then you
yeah.
make your choice for your future going forward, right?
Right, right. Okay. We might be a little too late on that because we installed the nukes that we bought into deeps, and we put the swarm and the split into deeps So we might be committed at least for this season, but maybe next season we would consider doing exactly what you're describing.
Especially if they go up, especially.
Yeah, especially if by the end of winter, they're all up in those mediums anyway.
We could
Yes,
just get
right.
rid of the deep and add a medium.
Right, right.
Right,
Okay,
so,
But
so if
that's
you have a
what-
hive full of deeps and you have mediums on top, you take the medium off and you make an all medium hive, and you take
yes,
deep that's underneath them and you put it on top of one of your deeps that's full, and you can make the split. It's the right way to think about it at the end of the season.
okay,
Yeah, because we were really puzzled about how to how to go from deep, medium to deep, deep. Like how to rearrange all of those frames so that we were getting the hive in an orderly fashion. And obviously you would want to do that right at the top of the season, and we're past that now. So
Yeah, yeah.
um
all right, that's great, thank you.
Yeah, I mean, one of the other things you could consider is making sure the queen's below the queen excluder, and put a queen excluder in and do some work that way. But I think you have the right answer. Let them build to the winter, and then coming out of winter, they'll be up and top. And then from there, you can segregate your equipment to whatever stack you want in the next season.
That's great, and I like the idea of trying both, doing a double deep and also having that whole 3 mediums thing, and then we'll really get a sense of how it is to manage each one.
Yeah, I kind of I don't know, a traditionalist. I've stayed with my deeps, but I run all mediums also, and I also have 8 frame equipment because I like to try all different kinds to see what the pros
Uh-huh.
and cons of those are.
Right.
But I've never done what you did, which is a deep and a couple mediums. I've never mixed the two. I know some
It's-
people do that, but
I think it must have been suggested to us when we took our class the first time. I think we took the class at Raritan because it fit in with our schedule, and I guess some of the folks over there may have suggested using mediums, deep into mediums. So that's really why we started it that way.
and because we're small people.
Yes, we're tiny.
yeah. Well, you know what? It does make sense from a lifting standpoint, right?
Yeah.
You're not going to take the deep off of the bottom board. But if you
Right.
need to get to it, you're only lifting mediums. So it does make sense, but you do sacrifice the ability to move comb around.
Have you had any experience? We were just noticed this tool on the internet recently that Flowhive made, which is like a jack that
Yeah.
lifts the thing off. That seemed really, if it's as amazing as it looks in the video, it seems like it could be a really nice game changer for folks who want to use the deeps and just have it take the weight and lift things off like that. Have you seen what I'm talking about? What was your sense of that?
I know about it, but I haven't seen one yet.
I haven't seen one in person, but if you should.
They're brand new. I mean, they just announced it this
Exactly.
spring. So
Yeah.
it'll be interesting to see. I've talked to a handful of people who are pretty excited to see that. and
Yeah,
wanna
I
give it a
was
try.
certainly excited to see it myself.
Yeah.
Anyway, thought I would ask. All
Well,
right,
if you
that's
get one, let us know.
absolutely. I will share. If we end up purchasing one, we will definitely share our experience with it.
We've had so many people ask about flow hives that I have one, so I can speak to how it works, and they make really nice equipment.
Yeah,
The
it's
company.
that jack that they have supposedly works with any Langstroth hive. So we were just thinking about getting the jack itself and using it on our own equipment.
Yeah, you'll have to drill holes and put the
Yeah,
hooks
some
and all
screws
that
in.
stuff, right?
Yeah.
But I think
Yeah.
that's doable.
Seems simple enough. Yeah.
I don't know how you'd have to do that with each hive and then take that tool. I don't know.
Yeah,
It'll be
you just
interesting to
take it
see.
with you. Yeah.
I'm wondering if we'll see one at EAS this year or something.
Mm,
So, okay.
Thank you so much.
Have you had any swarms in Lambertville? One last question for you.
Not. I mean, except for at our farm, we had one of our own hives swarm into a tree luckily right where I could. I mean, just barely where I could get to it on the top
Yeah.
of a ladder.
That was
Um,
last week, you said?
It was a week or maybe a week and a half ago. We were really surprised.
Yeah, that's
I
early.
was going over to the farm to basically go get a lawnmower to prepare a bee yard that I was a friend of ours who has a farm asked for some bees, so we were going to go bring some our splits over to him. So when I went to go, get my lawnmower, I just noticed I heard them as soon as I drove out on the property. I could hear them in the air, and found them in a tree.
Yeah.
Yeah, they
It's
got
been
out
a
ahead of us.
quiet year.
They got out ahead of us. I mean, we were ready. We were like that weekend we were gonna do it, and
They jumped. They
Yeah.
jumped the gun.
so
That's the way it goes sometimes.
Yeah.
yeah. But our highs were really strong actually coming out of winter. So
Yeah.
Good.
We
Yeah,
had a lot
that's
of
good.
bees.
All right, I'm gonna call on Kyle if you have a mic. Want to just let me know if you have something you have questions about? Maybe not. Kyle McDonald. We'll give him a minute. Eileen, how you doing?
I'm doing well. My bees, I think, are going gangbusters. And I do a lot of reading and watching YouTube and everything, but I think I have a great plan and I know all what I'm supposed to be doing, but I open it up and I see all those bees and I'm just like, I don't know what to do. There's just so many of them. So um, I was in this past weekend and both of my hives have a bunch of queen cells.
Oh yeah.
So, but I I know I need to do a split, but I kind of don't want additional hives. So, and I can never find the queen, no matter how hard I look, I can never find her. And I can never see eggs either. So I don't know. I guess I'll try maybe a vertical split. I mean, it's still a split, but if you can't find the queen, that's the way to go, right?
you don't want to make splits. You don't want more hives. That's what you said.
Mm, I'm thinking I don't,
Yeah, I mean that's
but the
okay.
other,
I just
if you don't want more, what do? You just let them swarm and that's
that
it.
is one you can let them swarm. You could also do a Day Marie, which one of the things I think is more practical is if you have the equipment, make a split, do a walkaway split. You know what that is?
I need to find the queen for that, right?
What's that?
I would need to find the queen to do a walkaway,
No,
wouldn't I?
no, this is
No?
the key. Let's say you have two deeps. You know the queen's in one of them. You take a bottom board and you set it on a stand. You take the two boxes. When you know that they have brood in all stages, which they do at this time of year, and you take that box and you put it on a bottom board, you give it an inner cover, you put a roof on it, and you just stand back. And the reference here is the walkaway split is you just walk away. Now, what do you know you have? You have one box, either that one or the one that you started with that has a queen, and one that doesn't, but it has brood in all stages, including eggs. And when they discover that they're queenless, they will make a queen. And so you could just leave that colony to its own devices. Now, one of the things that's going to happen is the foragers in the box that you split off might come back to the original hive, and you may deter some of your ability to make honey because you weaken the workforce. But if you have drawn comb available to you, you can go back to whichever one ended up with the queen and put a box on it with drawn comb. And since the queen is going to just keep going like she, would in the season, she'll quickly replenish that. And then you could put your honey supers on and you'll make a honey crop. While the single box makes a queen. And in 30 days, when that queen gets mated, if everything goes right, you'll have a second colony. Now, somewhere along the line, if you don't want more hives, you can go into the original one, find the queen, pinch her, and do a combine and take your new queen, if she's all that she's supposed to be, and put them together later in the season, and you've made one hive and you have a fresh new tried and true built-in swarm season queen. That's a lot of stuff to do, but that is one way to make a temporary expand, but then combine everything together and you don't end up with more hives. Do you have excess equipment with drawn comb?
I don't have drawn comb. I have excess boxes and frames with foundation. And I'm
Well,
also,
the other thing is if they're building during that, you want to sacrifice a little bit of your ability to make honey. You can put frames of foundation in there, and these colonies will build them out for you. It's the perfect time of the year for that to happen. So if you wanted to have them make a little more equipment for you, meaning drawn comb, you could use that scenario that we just went through to do that.
what might also be a complication is my configuration is deep, 2 mediums, or actually they have 3 mediums on them now.
Okay.
And I'm
So you would
hoping,
split the mediums off, do it, Doug and Kristen were talking about split the mediums off and leave the deep there.
yeah, I
You
want
would
to
make it all
transition
medium.
to all mediums too. That's another
Yeah.
thing I want to do. So,
Any words of wisdom there, Bob? You want to add to the conversation?
Well, I think one thing, Eileen, is you're gonna have to learn how to find the queen. So, yeah, at some point, you're gonna have to bite the bullet and do that. One thing that I've found that I had forgotten to do is if you go into a hive and you start looking from the top box, right, frame by frame by frame, the queen is running away from you. And so, especially if you're using smoke, you know, you look through those 10 frames and chances are she's one step ahead of you and she's down in the bottom box. So one of the things that I found that's useful is being able to, when I go into a hive, is take that top box off. I have a little bench that I bring with me. I put a chloroplast sign on the bench. I take that top box off. I put it on the chloroplast sign. I put another sign, cover the hive that remains, the one that remains, and now go through that top box because she can't run away from you. She's got to stay, if she's in that box, which chances are she is, you should be able to find her. So that's just a little tip in terms of trying to be able to find the queen and not have her constantly running away from you. Again, I had forgotten about it. I helped someone a couple of weeks ago and we were having all kinds of problems finding the queen, and I realized I hadn't really planned. And this is a good way is to go, again, isolate her in one box at a time. So you might want to try something like that.
yeah, they actually mentioned that at the mentoring thing this weekend. One of the mentors said the way he does it is he separates all the boxes right away and goes through them one by one so that she can't run from one box to another. But I haven't been back into them to try that yet.
I actually did it today and found the queen. And she was on the 8th or 9th frame that I pulled box.
Always.
Because again, she's always one step ahead, and that's another little trick. When you pull a frame out, immediately look at that next frame before you even look at the one in your hand, because chances are she ran away from you and she's on the next one over. Okay, and also when you're looking for the queen, you start at the top because she's looking to run to the other side, the dark side. So she's either going over the top or under the bottom. But again, I think it's a good tip, and I'm glad that you heard it from the mentors at the mentoring yard.
Yeah,
Makes it a little bit easier to find her.
Yeah.
'Cause again,
I'll keep trying.
Bob
Yeah.
makes a good point, and I'll expand on that by talking about let's go through find the queen advice. When you smoke the front entrance, you could put a lot of smoke in there, reasonable amount, That makes the queen go up. When you smoke the top of the hive as you're coming through, couple quick puffs in the hole. Take your hive tool, insert it underneath the inner cover, give it a twist, and as soon as you break it to like an inch wide, just a quick little puff. So anybody that wants to come out goes away. And then you take your inner cover off and you go through the process that I talked about earlier. When you go to put your hive tool in, all you need is just one puff. I see people like trying to blow all the bees off of the top of the frame, and they all retract, and so does the queen go down. You want to figure out which way the wind is blowing. When you squeeze your smoker, you'll see which way the smoke is going. If you have to, bring your smoker to the front of the hive and just 2 shots, and you'll see all the bees will go in. And then you take it and you just a little puff where you're going to put your hive tool in the front, little puff where you're going to go and pull your frame out. Now, where's the queen going to be? She's not going to be in frame 2 where we start. She's probably going to be in the middle of the brood nest. So you can go in with your hive tool and pull 3 back, pull 4 back, and pull 5 out and go right to 5. And if you're in a brood frame, now let's talk about the way they organize things. On the outside is typically honey. Then you get to the pollen frame. When you find a frame full of pollen, that's the promissory note that the next one's going to be a brood frame, because they put pollen right next to the brood. So when you pull that frame back 3 and look at it, if it's not pollen, pull 4 back. If that one's pollen, then 5 is a brood frame, and you pull 5. And then what Bob said is true. Queen's going to run as soon as she hits the light. So what I like to do is pull that frame up, and I just do a circle around the outside. I stop in the upper left-hand corner, and I run across the top, down the right side, along the bottom, and up. And I keep my eyes really loose. I'm not trying to drill. I'm looking for that large queen black spot on her, or if she's marked, all the better, right? Do the circle, and then quick do a flip and do the circle on the other side. And then take your time and look through all the bees and see if you could find the queen. And then put that one down and pull the next one. When you go to do the next one, it's just a light little puff to move the bees out of the way where you're putting your hive tool in. But if you come back with your smoker and you're just keep driving smoke down in, she's going down in the bottom. So don't chase your queen away. If you try that technique as you go through the next one, go right to the brood frame, the first one past the pollen frame, and work your way through and use a minimal amount of smoke, you might find that it's easier to find your queen for you. And remember, do that scan around the outside
Okay.
and see if that helps you. Did I see a question? Thought I saw a question come up there.
Well, I do. You mentioned you had just called a swarm trap,
Mm-hmm.
and I have one out. It's basically a hive. On the inside of the inner cover, on the bottom side, is what I baited. I got two boxes on it, 2 medium boxes. For the
Okay.
bait, I use beeswax that I melted and put lemongrass, what do you call it? Lemongrass.
Lemongrass. That's what it's called, right? The stalk.
The lemongrass, yeah.
Yeah.
Ointment or liquid. I mixed it about 10 to 1 wax to the lemongrass.
Mm-hmm.
And then I took a Q-tip as a painter and took a couple strokes of that on the inner cover. Is that too much or not enough?
That lemongrass stuff is pretty strong. And if you find that What I know is usually around from noon to 2 o'clock in the day, heat of the sun, when that interior starts to heat up and those volatiles from that come out, you'll find bees looking at your box. When you go out and look at your box, do you see any of them looking at it?
I've
Smelling
seen,
it?
yes, I have.
Then you got it right. If you
Okay.
see bees walking,
I, I've,
walking
I've
around
even
at the
opened it up
entrance,
and
in, out,
I opened it up and seen a bee in there exploring.
yeah. I have so many bees looking at my traps right now that it's hard to tell that they're not occupied. And that's when you know, when they're so busy at the entrance that it looks like a real hive, you know that the vote is going on, that they are really excited about what you have. 2 days ago, I saw that in the swarm trap, and then today they moved in. And I have another colony on the other side of my property that I have a lot of that going on too. And I took a Layens Hive nuke box and I sprayed one squirt on it of lemongrass or the swarm commander and put it out. And they've been looking at it like crazy today.
Yeah.
So as long as you see bees coming, then I think you're okay. If you see nothing there, then maybe you want to back off a little bit or go the other way and put a little more in. Depends on how fresh your lemongrass is.
Yeah. Well, if you can smell it, really, it doesn't take much of that to smell.
Yeah, you don't want to have it too crazy because if it's too strong, they'll ignore
Yeah.
it. Yeah. Okay. Well, good luck with that. I think you'll do okay. Russell, who was in here before, Windsock, he told me that they have swarms like crazy down there in Maryland right now. So,
Yes, there have been around me a couple of swarms that I'm aware of.
okay, good. Anybody else want to ask a question? Hi, Vanessa. Welcome. Thanks for coming to join us.
Sorry I'm late. Yeah, I have my swarm box out, but I don't have any trees, so it's literally just sitting on a bench in my yard, just in case
That
my girl
works.
left.
It'll work.
Decide to leave. They won't leave too far.
Do you have old comb in there? Funky comb?
I do. I have the comb that came in my first nukes, which are in
Oh yeah,
definitely.
that's old funky comb. Yeah. I see somebody with a phone number and I don't know how to call on you. You want to have any questions or want to say hello? 144330. Guess not. Okay. Annetta, welcome. You guys are on mute. If you want to say hello. Might have stepped away. She was there a moment ago. Okay. I won't hold you here if you don't have any other questions. I'm excited to hear a couple of you are getting bees. I know once you get them, they'll have more stuff, and the season is in full swing right now, so I think you would be well served to just keep an eye on your queens when you get things installed, whether you
Yeah.
bought a new package or whether you bought a nuke. Sometimes the second year nukes, the queens go south or whatever. So just, watch over the next until our next meeting. Just make sure your queen is laying eggs and you have good patterns and stuff. So Ned, I see you're back. Did you have a question?
I do have a few questions. I apologize. Been running around the two new apple inspections already. None of the queens were marked, first of all.
Okay.
One of the nukes was winterized. It's fantastic. I came back from Florida, was it on Sunday? And the whole box was filled, so I stocked up another one. And the other one is not winterized, so it's behind.
Okay.
So I'm assuming they are approximately 8 meters apart. So that should be enough space between one and the other beehive. Do I need to be worried about it? It looks like they're social. They're doing great. At first I thought they may fight and get confused because they were all moved to a strange location at once. So are they okay spaced out approximately? I don't know. That would be like 10 feet
Yeah,
apart.
that should be fine. Just make
Okay.
sure that the smaller one
Uh-huh.
is a closed down entrance. So if the big one decides it wants to pick on it, they can defend the entrance. Make the entrance defensible by ensuring that you have a mouse guard on there with a small entrance. Now,
So
they're free flowing, at the entrance, and the entire bottom board is covered, and every bee that comes in gets inspected by a guard. You could see all that. They'll be
yes,
watching
yes,
it.
yes.
Then maybe you don't have to go too crazy. But
Right.
if one hive's a beast and the other one is moderate, they could somewhere along the line decide to try and pick on the smaller one. Although, since you have them spread apart, they're probably okay. And the big one is probably focused on going out to all the flowering trees right now.
Yes. And you know what? For 2.5 weeks, they had a space reducer. Now, because it's been really warm and I see a lot of activities, actually during the day, I've removed it and
Yeah.
there's no rubbing, there's nothing. They're being really nice. And I come and watch them, in the morning and at night. So my question number one is going to be 44 degrees tonight. Now, I know bees are pretty resilient and they'll warm themselves up, but should I still go and put the space reducer tonight? I just did. When should I actually not start? Stop worrying about it and just let the bees do the bee thing, and not take it off in the morning and putting back at night. I'm obviously concerned. At night, they're going to get cold, but then could be some other animals. So I put it in. Not sure if that's even a good idea. So definitely during the day, they're way too busy to deal with it, because I tried to put it back around 6 o'clock. They were still really busy. They were confused. They were returning to the beehive, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I think that's a bad idea. So I waited till till got much darker. So, can you talk about when is the right time, to not worry about, keeping the reducer in?
Yeah, I think you're spot on. 45 degrees at night is usually the barrier to me.
Mm-hmm.
And you're in Pittston, so I know you're in the same region as us. I look at the weather going out today, looks like it's going to be the last 45 at night.
Yeah, I think so
So
too.
I think you could pull that and let it go. And one of the things, if you do have an entrance reducer on,
Mm-hmm.
you find that, it's a barrier to progress. If you're
Yeah.
trying to grow a hive, you really want to leave them unencumbered. So you want to open it up as soon as you can get it. The
Uh-huh.
key would be if they're able to defend the colony,
Mm.
they'll stay warm at night. If they don't like the cold, they'll go up into the interior of the hive a little more. But tonight's the last night, it appears to be 45. Everything from here on out, from what we can,
Should be fine.
unless the weather switches, is somewhere around 50 degrees, and that's game time. I think you'll be fine. You could pull them out and you don't have to have them.
Okay, yeah, because I noticed it was very confusing to them because, I took it out during the day and they were doing fantastic. And then I put it back and then, they were just, yeah, they were just a little bit confused. Okay, so I have another question, so it's probably really silly. So when I picked up my nukes, one of them still had the treatment, the strips in. Obviously, yeah, everybody yelled, keep them in. For how long do I keep those strips in? I mean, at certain point, and I should have probably just looked that up online. But at what point did I take them off?
So I'm going to make an educated guess, and that's the best I can do.
Right.
The time frame for treatments for the strips is 42 to 56 days, and you might as well get the
Oh.
full treatment for them, which is 56 days.
Okay.
When you pick them up, my assumption would be that they made those nukes for you probably 2 to 3 weeks before you got them. So
Mhm.
assume the meter was running for 3 weeks and finish out your 56 days, and then you'll be free to pull them. If you leave them in just a touch longer, it won't hurt anything. So you could
Okay.
actually leave them in for the full 56 days
Mhm.
and then just make sure you pull them out.
I'll do that.
Time.
So that actually prompts another question because the winterized nuke that I received came
Mhm.
in without any treatment on it. So I reached out to the supplier. He was near Philadelphia area, and he basically said that he did treat it with the strips. Is that correct? Because the strips were no longer there. So I don't know what to do. Obviously, I don't want it to run into an issue where I'm going to have pests and decimating my colony because,
Yeah.
so I don't know what to do. Should I, now that you mention it's 56 window to keep the treatment, like, did they really treated it? That I'm just concerned a little bit. What would you say about that? Should I go back to that person?
So it's one of those things where they either put the strips in when they make the colony,
Uh-huh.
or they put the strips in fall. That's very typical. So let me talk about the strips. The strips are a great product to use when you have a smaller colony. And as colonies are scaling back to go into overwinter, they have a smaller cluster. And for a beekeeper to be thrifty, they don't have to use as many strips. So it is customary for some beekeepers to put their strips in fall, and the bees go all through the winter and they pull them out in the spring, and then they sell them to you and they've already run their course. So if he followed what is sometimes a customary practice to put the strips in the fall and he pulled them out before you sold them, then you don't have to do a thing. You already had your mite treatment. Your
Okay,
colonies would start with a
makes
low
sense.
varroa mode, and then you would begin to monitor at the end of May, early June, just to make sure that the mite load didn't come up to the point where it's doing damage to your colony.
Okay.
I don't know, Bob, you have any thoughts on that? Anything different from what I said?
No, I agree.
Yeah. They tend to like to use Apivar has shown some resistance.
Mhm.
That's what the strips are. But it works well when you have a small colony. And so people are using it at the end of the season or at the beginning of the season, and you got both apparently, in that way. But at the height of the season, if you're sticking it in the middle of summer, expecting a major knockdown, you're probably not going to get it. There's not enough contact with a large colony to distribute it. And, theoretically, people have been talking about resistance. So,
Okay, thank you. And then one other question, the third last question I have is regards feeding them. So, yeah, the winterized colony, the minute I brought it in, I was feeding it, and then when I came back from my vacation, it was pretty much empty, so I filled it again.
Mhm.
Three-quarter of the way. The other colony, obviously, is smaller, so it had probably halfway through its feeder, so it didn't eat as much, but I still made it to three-quarter of the mark. Now they are a lot busier. So when do I stop feeding them? I mean, in Pittstown, I don't know. I mean, there's Poland, but I'm just concerned, do they have enough food? And, it's a lot for them to orient themselves and find all the different sources. So, I mean, obviously, if they have all the orientation from year to year, it's easier. But they're kind of, left to their devices to discover their food source. So when should I stop feeding them? Should I continue?
I would continue. So this is the general rule of thumb for everybody about this, is that when you're trying to build a colony, giving them food in reserve is always a good thing because they'll have it right there at the colony. They don't have to go out and seek it.
Mhm.
Chances are they'll continue to use it unless the forage is so good that they don't see a need for it. even if that's the case, you can just slow down, but eventually they will come back to it. The key thing is keep it relatively topped off. Make sure they're not storing excess in the brood area. We covered that before you came in.
Mhm.
You know, make sure that they're not storing so much that it's being placed where the queen wants to lay, and make sure that it doesn't spoil. You know, and at some point when you have 2 full boxes, then you could look to taper off. But until you
Reserve.
have 2 full deeps or 3 mediums, or at least the equivalent of a full-size brood nest, I would keep feeding.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, Vanessa?
So to that point, I have 2 gallons, and I think I asked you this before, of old sugar sitting on my back porch. I should just say goodbye to that, right? Find a hummingbird to feed it to. What do you
Yeah,
think?
it's funny because I have some in my basement too, and I know one of it just started to turn moldy, but the rest of
They'd
it's still
look
good.
they'd look like a regular jug, but I think it's 2 to 1.
Give it a little
Not
taste.
1. If Why not? It's sugar and water. It's just been
It's
sitting
sugar and
outside.
water. Yeah.
Yeah, but
If
it's
it's
2
2
to
to
1.
1, you just put a little more water in it, Vanessa,
Oh,
and
that's good.
off you go.
Yeah. Thank you for being so logical.
Yeah. Why
Quick-
waste it, right? Just as long as it's not moldy and fermenting, because bad sugar is bad for bees. Sugar that is spoiled is bad for the bee gut, and you don't want to do that. That's not being thrifty, that's being difficult. You'll cause problems. But if it tastes good to you, like regular sugar water, then I bet you could just dilute that down and go ahead and pour it in.
I have
In
a,
fact, I got to do that test myself actually this week.
I have a quick question. I've heard putting a little bit of vinegar in the sugar water is supposed to help preserve it better. Have you heard that?
Yeah, it's not uncommon to put a little bit of sugar water, honeybee healthy, bleach even. Like some people put a little splash of bleach in it. It doesn't hurt the bees. Think they're drink water from a swimming pool and they get bleached that way. And it thwarts any difficulties you would have of the food spoiling quickly. I think more of the concern is when you're putting it on in the heavy heat days of summer. That stuff spoils pretty quickly, but this time of year usually lasts pretty well. They take it down before they see it spoil.
Do you have a recipe to make your own? Obviously, I'm new to this, so I've been buying in a bucket and then making it 1-to-1 with water. Um, but do you have a recipe where I can, just grab regular white sugar and put it with water and some other ingredients? Maybe you mentioned vinegar and some other things to feed them, or should I not
Yeah, I mean,
think about
mixing
that?
sugar solution, you don't really need to get crazy. I know beekeepers love their bees and want to do all kinds of stuff, but
Yeah.
1 part water, 1 part sugar. Mix it up until the sugar is dissolved, and that's all you really need to do. Some people like to buy Honeybee Healthy, and so for example, Landy Simone, who's an extremely well-known EAS master beekeeper here in New Jersey, has a recipe for homemade Honeybee Healthy. And anytime she mentions that, people go gaga trying to get the recipe. But honestly,
No, tell them no, that's the
99% of the
one.
beekeepers, they use regular just sugar and water. I like, the Chinese food containers that you buy like a large hot and sour soup or wonton soup in. I fill one of those with sugar and I fill it with hot water and I pour it in a pot, stir it around, and then I pour it into an Arizona iced tea jug. I always have a bunch of those on hand, and they are really easy to pour into any feeder,
Mhm.
and it makes, enough for you to go from hive to hive to hive. And you just maintain 1 or 2 gallons of those all the time.
So no lemongrass, no nothing,
I don't
just
need
keep it
any of that. I
basic.
mean, you can, don't get me wrong. You could put that stuff in if you really want to knock yourself out.
My
Sometimes,
water
and this
has
is,
lemongrass in it.
let me go the other way, right? Sometimes people go crazy and they put essential oils in. some of that stuff is poisonous to bees at certain concentrations. So if you are going to try elixirs, people make teas and other things, be careful with your experimentation. Some of it is not good for bees.
Yeah, I am only using lemongrass oil. That's it, and it's organic. So I'm putting very little, and that's it. No other experimentations.
Yeah, very
Maybe a little
little,
bit
like
of
a
fish.
drop or two a gallon, right?
Yeah,
You don't need much more than that, just something to scent it. Yeah,
right.
I don't think you'd go with like, somebody might say, well, I'm going to put a tablespoon in. I wouldn't go that far. That's
Yeah.
way too potent. But
Yeah,
they
my goodness.
will because they think more is better.
Now I noticed that because I have a container quite large, and it's filled with water and rocks and sticks, and then on top of it I have 2 additional balls, and the balls have a much more cleaner, purer water, and
Mhm.
the other one is not so. It's like slightly dirty. The bees prefer the dirtier
They
water.
do. Yeah.
I'm like, oh my gosh, okay. You kind of have to, go with what they like, it's not what we perceive to be the best for them. So,
Yeah, well, first off, they can smell the funk of that water and it draws it to them. Like if you could put pond water and clean water, they're going to smell the pond water and go to the pond water.
mhm.
And I say this on occasion is they'll go down to a steaming pile of cow patty and drink the water off of it. They don't care. It's water. They'll go to, horse urine and things like that because they could smell it. So they like funky water. Funky water is good for them.
Okay. Yep. I
Some
absolutely,
people
that's
take
happening.
salt. That's the only thing, like a little bit of salt, minerals from the salt is something. If you should all have water out for your bees, and you might want to put a little pinch of salt or, the New Jersey Beekeepers Association newsletter. I think it came out yesterday. John Gott mentions that he uses salt in his water, and the bees are very much attracted to it. They really like that because it gives them nutrients that they're missing. So,
They drink a ton of water where I am, ton of
yeah.
it. So I just refill it every day. So yeah, I'm hoping they're healthy and doing good. But I mean, I have no idea what I'm doing. I mean, I have slight idea, hoping for
Well,
best.
just be patient and keep going. The more you do, the more you get comfortable with it, right?
Yeah.
It take a
They
couple seasons, but
they are such a good girls, you can handle them and they don't sting you. They just buzz around, you move them around. It's just an incredible feeling, to have those little, creatures, flying around and be like,
yeah.
okay, we're not attacking you or anything, we're just doing their own thing. So it's very nice. So I'm enjoying it
I've
so
been
far.
through all of my hives this year, and I have to say that I I really I don't know, I feel like they're pretty content with whatever's going on. I went through them all and didn't have any challenges. The only time I got stung is I was carrying a piece of equipment back to my garage and didn't realize that there was a bee on it, and I pinched it with my finger and it stung me. So, I mean, they're pretty
Yeah.
docile and calm this time of year. Now, you have to all know that come summertime, when the dearth comes, they get a little more feisty,
Mm,
and
okay.
you need to, take a little more care with being slower and what you do with them. But for right now, but they're pussycats. They're pretty nice to work.
So
So,
actually, on that note, around dearth and next, so the flowers are out like everywhere, right? It's absolutely beautiful. So now we're in the nectar flow, right? Is
mhm.
there like a website I can check that tells me, just like I'm not a gardener, I'm not great with plants, right? So I'm trying to figure out like what my bees are going through. And I looked and I found a couple of like static maps, but they weren't like dynamic, like there's like a cherry blossom watcher, things like that. Do you know of any websites that are like zip code based kind of nectar forecasting for
I don't think
reporting?
I don't think it works that way. In the context that, and this is a generality, but the forage availability is both local and regional. Like whatever they have going on in Maryland is the same as what you have going on in New York State, with some exceptions. And so you might be better, Vanessa, to go look at pollen charts. What pollen is present at what time, and what's the color look like, and watch the pollen going in. And chances are, by the color identification, you can figure out, based on pollen availability, what it is they're foraging with.
I don't think I asked my question correctly.
I
I'm gonna
don't know
try
of any
again.
website that says this is in bloom right now and this is what your
Okay.
group would be working. And the other thing is,
Like-
which is strange, Vanessa, is you could have a fully blooming, beautiful tree right here, and they go that way. But the other hive goes to the tree. So I don't.
But I maybe, and again, this could speak to my just lack of knowledge around plants. Is it that if there's pollen, there's nectar? So I thought
Yes.
pollen preceded nectar.
I think when the flowers are in bloom, there's pollen and nectar. Right.
Okay.
It's wide
Okay.
open.
All right. Then I can just watch the pollen.
Xerces,
Got
do you
it.
know what Xerces Society is?
No.
Xerces is spelled Xerces, the Xerces Society. If you want to know what's blooming and where, that's the website to go look at. They're the ones that have quite a bit of information about plants availability and so on.
Thank you. I just pulled the page. Thank you.
Yep.
So Kevin, are you saying if you don't see pollen coming in anymore, the nectar flow is over?
No, see, she wanted to know what was in bloom. One of the easiest ways to know what's in bloom is to watch the pollen going in the front door. And then if it's green, you go look at the pollen chart for May 1st and say, what are the green pollen things that go on in May 1st? What plants are in bloom? And there might be two to choose from. And then you walk around and look and see. So this is another thing for everybody to consider. Bees generally fly pretty close to your home. What I did was I actually walked out the fields and went and looked and see, well, there's wild mustard and there's bees all over it. And I looked at the pollen being collected at the plant, and then I walked back to the hive and watched what was going in, and I could match the pollen and say, okay, this time of year they're working wild mustard. When they till the fields, for example, a lot of times when the field and the ground is broken this time of year, you see wild mustard coming up when the Mayflowers are in. And they like to work that stuff. Now, if you don't break the soil, then you won't have that this year. So everything is kind of it depends. But if you want to know what they're foraging on, one of the things you do is just walk around your neighborhood and look for bees and look and see what pollen they have on the plant they're working, and then go back and see if it's going in the front door. And then, you know, that tree, they work that this time of year. I could tell you that we have a southern magnolia tree in our backyard. It's the only one for miles. And I know what the pollen looks like. And when they're working that tree, I can watch it literally go right into the hive. And I know they're making southern magnolia honey.
Amazing.
So how do you know when the dearth starts? Like there's no
Usually
nectar.
you can tell when they get a little more defensive, and you just ride around your neighborhood and you don't see any plants in bloom. I would say for our region, it's anywhere from 4th of July to July 30th. Everything starts to taper off, but it depends on where you are. As to how that works. And what I mean by that is, let's just take the Hunterdon County region where a lot of you are from. Some of you are in the valley, and some of you are on the ridge, and some of you are in the forest, and others are out in the farm country. And so we're all going to see the dearth come differently based on the forage available in our vicinity. And as a beekeeper, you come to know when does that happen in your particular area, because beekeeping is local. I'll put Bob on the spot. Bob, when does the dearth happen for you?
when it does. So anyway, I'll go back to people want to know what's in bloom when. Actually, in my early career, for 3 years, I kept a log of what I saw blooming when and how many grow degree days it was that year, so that I could kind of get a handle on what was the sequence of blooming flowers and blooming tree in my area. So if you want a little project to work on, you could do something like that. But again, the dearth is anywhere from the beginning of July to the middle of July, usually. Depends on rain.
Yeah.
Haven't been getting a lot of rain, and if we don't get a lot of rain, it'll be earlier.
So do we feed our bees all throughout summer then? I mean, when there's not much
Yes.
food for them in July, so we just continue feeding them. If it's coming low, just come and fill it up, to the end of the year. Is that what we're supposed to do?
So let's talk about your situation versus my situation. All my hives came through winter. They're fully operational.
Mm-hmm.
Unless I make a split and I'm trying to grow that hive to full grown, I don't have to feed it during this season. But everybody
have-
that has a new colony should be feeding it until it's full grown. Now, when you get to the summer months, when it gets drier in New Jersey and there's less forage, you do want to feed because you want to carry the bees through so that they're not hungry through August, September, and keep the workforce going so that they're strong enough to build their winter bees out through to December. If
Mhm.
you didn't feed, they would probably get by, but they would be a smaller colony. And they're going to have to work harder in fall if there's a fall nectar flow when the asters and the goldenrod and such come out in order to catch up to something that has been fed. So if you have the opportunity, I will tell you early in my beekeeping, 2010, I started in 8. I went through this situation where I'm not going to feed. I'm just not going to feed. I want to see what happens. My bees starved. They starved. So I got to the point where I said, every year come August, I'm going to feed. And I
Mhm.
make it a point that my bees by Halloween, November 1st, have 60 to 80 pounds. And I never worry about my bees starving in winter, ever. I don't have to feed them. I don't have to, they always have excess honey come February and March, always, because I feed starting in August or September, and I feed until the weather turns to the point where they're not going to ripen it. So
Okay.
I would get in the habit of doing that. Now, you have 2 colonies, they overwinter. You come
Mhm.
into next March, April, and the trees are in bloom. Do you need to feed those colonies? No, actually, you would not feed in the spring because if you're feeding those bees, you're stimulating them almost to the point where they're going to swarm out of your box. Now, if you're trying to grow
Mhm.
and you want to stimulate bees so you can make splits and do all of that stuff, then maybe as a second-year beekeeper, you'll feed. But usually in second year, if you have a decent colony coming out of winter, you don't feed it. But you guys with new hives, you should be feeding it all the way through the rest of the year until it has 60 to 80 pounds and is ready to go for winter.
Got it.
Yeah.
So even the winterized, they should be fed. Okay, so really quick question. So been really windy, and I don't know. I live on right near Sky Cafe, so we kind of get even more wind than usual.
Mhm.
How's this affecting my bees? I mean, I'm assuming it's definitely harder for them to fly around and orient themselves for food and everything. So how detrimental is that they are here versus maybe in the valley somewhere?
It's really strange this year, and my wife and I have talked about this quite a bit recently in the context that I don't know what happened from like this time last year through to this year. There has been so much wind. Am I
Mm-hmm.
wrong? It is so windy all
Very
the
windy.
time.
Mhm.
And I don't understand why that dynamic changed. The bees do perfectly fine in the wind. They have to work
Okay.
harder, of course, but they do absolutely fine in wind. Have no problem with it. The
Okay.
only concern you really have for wind is on those cold days when the wind's blowing through the front entrance. It's blowing at the front of the hive and it's going in through the front entrance and chilling the brood up on the bottom
Mhm.
to the point that the bees can't keep it warm, which is why when it is windy and the nights get down to 45 and the wind could blow in through the front entrance, you'll chill the brood and it'll set them back, which is why you keep the entrance reduced. But once it gets above 50, two things happen. One, the temperature is warmer, and two, they usually have enough bees that they can take a beating from the wind blowing in because they have so much bees that they can make warm.
Yeah. I just worry.
Yeah,
Like, oh my God,
no,
for humans is really, really windy. And I'm like, those little guys are
you
trying,
never consider what goes on inside this thing until you have bees out in the box. Then you're
Oh my gosh,
really
yes.
thinking through it, right?
Yep. Yep. I don't have problem going and, putting the reducer in and out, depending on the weather, but I just want them to do well. And
In
the
years
wind
coming,
here is terrible.
you'll get past that.
Oh, I know. I mean, they're
I'm going
going
to
to
give
grow up big
everybody a tip,
girls.
which is an interesting one.
Mm.
You have the wooden ones, the wooden entrance
Yeah.
reducers. They
Mhm.
make the metal grids with the holes punched in.
Yes, seen those.
I use those.
Mhm.
And this is the thing about it. In wintertime, when I want to close this off, I just take tape and I close it off till it's got a small entrance. And in the springtime, when the bees want to open the entrance, they want to open the entrance, they chew through the tape holes. And you might see they leave it the way it is. And then as the season progresses and they want more exit space, they start chewing through the holes and eventually they chew through all of them. They
Ooh.
control the entrance as to how they want it based on the size of the colony.
What kind of tape do you use out of curiosity?
Blue painter's tape.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
Very cool. Okay.
Yeah. So that's another thing to consider. And you never have to take that entrance off.
Right.
If you
They
have
are
a
in
robbing
control. Yeah.
incident, you can just tape them off and it makes it more defensible for them. Because robbers can't bang their way through that tape.
What is the entrance again? That you just,
You look in the bee catalog for the metal entrance reducers that look like somebody took a hole puncher and punched holes in
Mhm.
one of those. I really like those. I use
Talking,
both, of course. I have all kinds of stuff going on, but
talking about weather and all, so my nukes are using, solid boards right now.
mhm.
While it's going to get like an 80s and everything, when should I transition them to they have the boards with like the mesh, so that would be cooler when it's going to be really hot. Should I lift everything up and move it into that soon enough, or I mean, not right now, obviously, because it's still May, um, but when should I start thinking about it to just, give him some more breeze? And then obviously then I have to put them back on the regular solid one. So it's tricky.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of personal preference. A lot of people don't go through the work of switching bottom boards out from screen to solid and back. Um, Most of the time, people use screen bottom boards for integrated pest management. The whole premise of that is that varroa mites are going to fall through and meet their demise, not so much for ventilation. The bees can live in a bee tree with a little tiny hole and it gets super hot and they control the temperature through thermoregulation. And so if you feel like you need to switch it out in order to cool them off, yeah, actually don't. They'll keep it cooler even if they were stuck with a solid bottom board all year.
Okay. I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah.
So not, so I won't switch them then, just considering it for the brutal last summer. We had, you know, it was humid and it was really, really hot. And I'm like, oh my gosh, they got to rust. So, you know, I was thinking maybe I need to do it the same year. But if they have a way of cooling themselves off and they have better off, then why not? I don't know everything. So,
Yeah, you're going to find that the bees can take care of themselves quite a bit, and you don't have to dote over them, so to speak. You know what I mean? I wanted to say that I thought it was rather unusual, but I saw bees bearding this week on one of my hives, which I thought was kind of strange. It seemed awful early, and I was worried that they were going to swarm. Let me show you. It wasn't that big, but this is a method of them
get
cool
ready to
hive off. Let me share my screen. You see this?
Not yet.
Anybody else see my screen?
Yeah, I can see it.
Yes.
Yep.
Ah, why can't I
Yeah,
see?
I see it.
Okay, look.
This is bearding.
Okay.
What the bees will do is, in order to escape some of the heat from the interior of the hive, they will come out and form a cluster on the bottom. And this is normal temperature control.
Buddy, come.
All of these hot bees will come out onto the surface. You'll find them covering the front of the hive and on the surface. I was concerned that this hive had so many bees in it that it was going to swarm when I saw this. This was last week. And turns out it was just a regular hive, and they were warm and decided to come out and hang out on the porch. So nothing difficult to see here, but this is a typical how they compensate for heat. Is they hang from the front in a big clump. Don't get excited if you see that this summer.
Hey, is this hive stand a DIY?
Yes, yeah. These
I like
are, if you go to bkcorner.org, my website, you could find the plans for these.
Let's see. I had a
Thank you.
question about
You
nuke
could see I
boxes.
have them painted all different colors and stuff.
Yeah, I see that.
To have fun with them.
My gosh.
What I had ordered styrofoam nuke boxes. What do you recommend for getting those started? Can I just take a frame of bias and another frame that's built out and just kind of put it in there and let them raise a queen, or
Oh,
do I
yeah.
have to introduce a queen to
Do
it?
you know what kind of boxes did you order?
They're styrofoam, and I got them from Better Bee, and they look really neat. It has a little round
They're
kind
kind of
of
like these?
plate. No,
Are they five?
it's skinny. It's skinny. It only holds about. It looks like it holds on. I forget. It's 4 or 5 frames, I think.
Should be a 5 frame. This is a
5
6
frames.
frame. This is
Okay.
the swarm that moved in today. I have
Oh,
this
wow.
sitting in my breezeway. This box is set here for me to go out for a swarm call. And this is my bait hive. And they moved into my box. They moved in.
That's awesome.
This is a nuke box like you're talking about. It's a 6 frame over 6 frame. But you would start with a single box. And you would move 6 frames in here. You could either take the queen, or you could take bias, and a typical split would be a frame of bees capped, a frame of bees open with eggs, a frame of pollen, a frame of honey, and an empty frame. Those are
Okay.
the 5 frames. And when you put them in there, they'll realize that they're queenless, and they'll go to the frame of open brood, and they'll make a queen.
Okay.
And obviously you would want to feed that. So
Awesome. I will try that.
May the 10th is when I'm supposed to get my nuke.
Yeah,
My bottom board is a screen bottom
okay.
with a plastic, corrugated plastic that slips in underneath. Now, I guess, you open, right now you want it closed. You want that in position, correct?
Yes, yeah.
How about that little notch on top of the hive on the inner cover? Would that be closed or open?
You can leave that open. Make sure it's in the front, not the back.
Oh, okay.
So you don't want to create what they call the chimney effect. If you have air pushing in through the front entrance and you have a notch in the back, it'll push it right out and take all the heat out of the colony. But if you have it in the front, the notch on the top, the air comes in and circulates in the hive, but it doesn't come and push it out because it's not pushing it through.
I see.
So put the notch towards the front and you can leave it open. I think nowadays, when the temperature is above 50 degrees or higher, and especially down there for you in Maryland, you should be perfectly fine in the context that, you can leave the air circulation. Remember, bees can stay warm inside the colony during winter. So
Yeah.
I think you're perfectly fine in that capacity.
Another thing, I wasn't too happy with the way that bottom slips in and out, doesn't fit. And it sags down, leaving light in. And I started looking for a 1/4-inch veneer board.
Yeah.
It's kind of hard to find. At 4x4 by 1/4 inch is virtually impossible to find. 4x8, yeah, but I didn't need that much. But
Yeah.
I wasn't
know.
too happy
You
with.
almost have to buy a 4x8, right? In order to get that.
Yeah. It just seems so flimsy.
Jack,
Yeah.
wait,
They make plastic hard material that's very nice for that. But the Coroplast stuff, some of it's pretty rigid and other is pretty droopy, pretty.
Another thing I was wondering about, I've no experience with sliding that, but after it's in there a period of time, how much clearance it needs to slip in and out readily. If I'm going to make another board, I want to make it a little longer with a hole in it that I can stick my finger through to pull it, to adjust it or remove it, whatever is the idea I had.
Some people, what they do, Jack, is they punch a little hole in it in the back of it. They make it a little bit longer so it hangs out by just a 1/4 inch, and they punch a hole in it and they run a zip tie in it. And when you want to pull it out, you grab the zip tie and pull that, and it pulls the entire thing out. You put a zip tie on both sides and you pull those, and it helps you because sometimes you can't get your fingers in there to grab the edge in order to draw it out. But if you
Yeah.
have those little zip ties sticking out and you just tuck them in, and when you want to take it out, you take your hive tool and you pull each of the tails out, and then you grab the tails and just pull them through.
Right.
I just put painter's tape and make a tab so it's sticking out. That's what my mentor showed me. It's like
Yeah,
it's
you could make like a little tail. Yeah, that's a good idea
sticks
too.
out with some
Yeah.
paint.
That's good.
How many of you have seen hive beetles in your hives? They do overwinter with the bees.
I saw 2 and I crushed them immediately until I
Yeah.
heard a little crunch. I almost did it with my teeth. I was that mad at them.
That's funny. I just did a presentation on hive beetles, and one of the challenges is that you can spread disease because they do carry disease.
I'll swallow them. I don't care. They're going away.
Yeah. This is the foam I was talking about, Michael, that I keep on my hives.
Okay.
Boss taught me this. He's a really smart beekeeper.
That's what I did over winter. I should have thought to keep it there for summer too. It just makes sense.
Yeah.
Do you notch that foam for condensation like the commercial ones?
I don't, but the front of my inner covers have a notch in it. And sometimes the bees will chew out the center above the hole, and they chew their own path through if they want one. So, but this is highly recommended that you keep these on the hive all year long.
I am gonna do that.
What's that, about an inch and a half thick?
I think it's a 2-inch. It's
Yeah,
pretty
that's what-
common. X as an X-ray, PS. XPS foam. You find it in all the box stores. And then you have these guys, small hive beetles. These overwintered from this colony.
Oh, shoot.
Oh, wow.
Now, will you treat the ground around there on that colony or not really? Or are you gonna try
I
to do
don't-
the interception in the hive?
I don't think I see enough of them to be a major concern. If I really wanted to, so when you're working with small hive beetles, number one job is to keep them out. And you do that by maintaining a strong colony. And number two job is if they do take a foothold, you want to stop them before they can take over by trapping them inside.
Mhm.
So
Oh, well, on mine, I did notice that the traps that I had been propolized shut. No surprise there.
yeah, right. And you clean them up or do whatever, right?
Yeah.
This is a typical colony coming out. These were taken on, let's see, 3/31.
Hmm.
Right, March 31st. Brood in all stages, lots of pollen.
Wow, it's beautiful.
Is that
This
the
is our-
famous queen
look
that you guys marked last year?
Yeah, look, she's got
Did you
paint on her
spill-
wings. This
Yeah,
is
you
what
spilled
we were
a lot of
talking about
paint
last
on her?
time that we got too crazy about and spilled paint all over her.
Oh,
I thought that was
no.
But you
I
can
thought that
see
was
she's
pretty
got
funny,
paint on
actually.
her wings. She's got paint on the back of her thorax. This is a Bob and Kevin paint special.
I think I'd be able to find that queen.
Yeah.
Do
But I mean,
do
it's
you
a
guys
nice
use
look at the
rollers?
pattern, right? This is brood in all stages. Down here are the eggs,
Beautiful. Hmm.
right? And it graduates to covered. And it's a pretty decent pattern. You know, you got these holes, but that's okay. Why would these holes be here in spring?
Possibly, I'm gonna guess bad brood. They could pull it, right?
Could be that.
They hatch.
You just hatched, yeah.
Or bee bread. Would there be any bee bread intermittent like that or not really?
90% of the time in the early spring, when you have this beautiful colored covering, it's because there was something in the cell when the queen got there. They didn't
Okay.
clean it out right, or
Yeah.
the early season they put storage in there and she couldn't lay an egg in this batch because they started to put something in it.
Hmm.
The other thing I want you to note when you look at this, you know, look, there's old propolis and wax in here. This is all fresh and clean. You see the color? Look down here, it's darker. Can you see that this is more recycled wax versus the fresh, clean? You could see the color gradation
Yeah.
change. I don't know how well it comes through for you guys, but
Wow.
yeah, it's this kind of stuff that you should look at. And I take pictures of every once in a while I stop and I take pictures of my comb and then I go and I look at the bees. Do I see any deformed wing virus? You may miss something, but if you take a quick photo, I laid this frame down, took a shot of it, and then went back after the fact and looked at the bees. How do they look? They look good. I don't see any deformed wing virus. They look pretty good shape. Sometimes you'll see older bees versus younger bees, and you could tell the difference because all the hair is rubbed off on them. And you'll know that's a bee that overwintered, where one is fresh and downy and white. So what does F623 mean? BB. You're not allowed to say, Bob.
bottom box, 623. I'm gonna guess that's when you got that frame, like purchased the actual frame,
Yeah.
and
No,
maybe
this
put it
is
into service.
BB is better B.
But is it?
That's a better B frame. This is a Brushy Mountain frame. And F is foundation installed June 23.
Oh wow. Okay.
And this one's 6/21. So what I did this week is I went through any of them that said F something 20 or older, they went, gone. I
Okay.
don't keep foundation older than 5 years.
That's smart.
So I
Mhm.
spent time this week going through all of my brood frames, including some of my honey frames, and cleaning all the shoulders off, scraping all the propolis off, all the burr comb around, this kind of stuff, and culling any comb that's older than 2020. And how do I know what kind of foundation to put back in the frame? It comes from Better Bay. That's why that BB is there. So I know where to get my foundation. Now, Brushy Mountain's not in service anymore. Better Be stuff fits in their thing. So, but that frame says Brushy Mountain and there's a 14. That's a 2014 frame that I've recycled year after year.
Wow.
Why do you recycle?
Why do I cut the comb away?
Yeah,
Because over the years, when they go through and you're doing treatments, wax is extremely absorbent and they could be exposed to both the pesticides that come into contact and lingering chemicals from the treatments. And so from that perspective, I like to keep fresh, clean wax in the colony to make them healthier. So I get rid of any wax that's older than 5 years, which is why I mark dates on all my frames.
what made me ask that question? I'm thinking wild bees in a tree don't do that.
They don't, but if they perish, the wax moth come in and clean all that comb away. They're nature's cleanup crew. And then the next colony that moves in starts over.
Yeah.
I always have my phone with me and I always try to, when I have the time, take the time to take photos. And then every once in a while, when I get a chance, I do just what we're doing right now. As I go through and I look at the brood. Is it clean? Is it wet? Do I have a record of what it looks like? This is well provisioned, very nice. You know, they should be floating in a pool of royal jelly like this. Look at the bridge they made here. That's kind of neat.
Yeah.
Now, what is this one right here? That might be pollen, but sometimes they entomb things that they don't like, so they cover it with wax so that that cell can't be used. And that's another reason for holes. And if you see a lot of that going on in your hive, you should get rid of that frame.
Oh, good point.
Occasionally, it's okay. You know, maybe it's just an oddball thing, but if you see a lot of this stuff going on, there's something wrong with it, and the bees don't like it, and they cap it off. Oh, but I mean, look how pretty that looks. So, yeah, take the time to bring your phone out and every once in a while, especially if you can have somebody join you, take some photographs and then look at them afterwards. And the things you'll see are very interesting. Bob will tell you I have thousands of photos of things. You know, one of the things that I do, let me show you this, and I don't know the answer. Maybe we can do this experiment right here. Here's a frame with a bunch of holes in it. What's in the holes? What's in here?
Larva?
I don't know. This is weird looking, whatever it is.
Hmm.
It looks like a bee that they chewed apart or something. I don't know, Bob. What do you think that is? What do you think these are?
It's hard to tell.
There is one clue. that these are old bees that they got rid of for some reason. It's this right here. They chewed this frame open or this cell open,
Hold on, Bonnie.
right? You could see this here. It's got jagged
Yeah.
edges. They uncapped that. And maybe these were uncapped and cleaned up and they're in the process of trying to put them back into service, but I don't know what that is. I saw this and I wanted to know what it was, so I took a picture to look at it, and this is the first time I've looked at them. I don't know what these things are in here. They could just be remnants of bees that they removed, or I don't know.
Did you
Could
take
be.
a sample?
I just took a photo, but you know, one of the things that I think I see, wait, let me show you. I saw it here. It could be this. It could be what's left of pollen that was deposited. And they're cleaning it out, and that's the bottom of the pollen left, right? That's why there's a hole here, right? Because there's pollen. Look at it. Now look at this one. There's a larva in there. And it's later than all the others, and it hasn't been capped. So did it get uncapped, or is it just at the end of the cycle and they're about to cap it? I don't know. There's another one right here. So bring your camera out and do some of this looking. It's always fascinating to me to learn what this stuff is, which is why I took the pictures of this. That one clearly is something got pulled out of it, right? From the jagged edges, they cut it apart. And I took a whole host of these to see what was going on. Like, what's in this one? And this one, they're empty. Why? I don't know. Queen didn't lay there. There's another empty one. So these are going to get capped, all of these, and these three here are going to be empty, and maybe that's what we were just looking at. I don't know. And how about this? Have you seen these? Look around your yard and see if you see holes. What do you think this is? This is right behind my hive. This is not a hive beetle. I'm guessing could be a cicada coming out of the ground. It could also be a wasp.
Wasp, yeah,
Queen.
that's
Building a nest right here, digger wasp or something. Right, this is a 1.5 feet off the back of one of my hives, which is why I took the picture. So spend time looking around in your apiary. You say before that if you're wandering around in there, take the pictures and look. It's fascinating to see what you see.
And so, did you do anything with that hole?
Nope. No,
No.
they're all over my yard.
Okay. So
Um,
I have noticed there were some ants coming up on the center box onto the hive. So I immediately not sprinkled, but put good amount of cinnamon around. Is bad idea, good idea, better choices out there to keep them away?
no, ants are a pain, really, and cinnamon is not a bad choice for that. I don't think it harms bees. Do you know, Bob? Does it harm bees?
No. No, you can use cinnamon.
Yeah.
These are just a nuisance.
The problem is it washes away after the first rain
Right.
sometimes, and that becomes the challenge. There was one other picture I wanted to show you all. To the point of
Hey, Kevin, if I have leftover honey from what I left them for the winter,
yeah.
should I remove all of that from the hive or leave them some and take some or first of all, I've fed them all last summer, so I don't think it's real honey.
Yeah.
So I pulled some,
What's it in?
What do you
What
mean,
is
what's in?
is it in deep frames or mediums?
mediums.
Yeah, that's a difficult one. Unless you're running all medium hives. If you have honey supers filled with funny honey, let's call it that because it's not real honey, then the only thing you could do is pull your honey, keep it in reserve frozen or something, collect your honey for the season, and then when you're fully clear, you know you're not going to take any more honey, then you can put that back and have the bees empty it out for you and get it out of there. I mean, the
Okay.
only other thing which is weird is to actually extract it and then take it and feed it back home, dilute it.
Well, what I did so far was I didn't take all the frames out. I took some of them out and they are in the freezer. And what I thought I would do, which is what I think you just said, is in the fall, going into winter, I'll give those frames back to them.
Feed them back. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Just be careful that they don't get small hive beetle infestation, because then you'll lose it all. They will
What?
eat it.
Can I leave them in the freezer the whole time?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And do you have to wrap them individually, each frame, before you put them in? Because I didn't.
I don't think so.
Okay.
No, as long as they don't make a mess for you. So I think it's we've been going Brandon says again, supposed to dropped off. I think we've been going long enough that it's 9 o'clock.
I got one
but,
more.
Yeah.
Got one
okay.
more.
Go
is,
ahead.
To mark a queen, does house paint work? Latex?
You could use latex. Most people use model paint. You ever see the pens, Jack?
Oh,
Like a tester's pen?
yeah, is that an oil base?
I think they usually are. But you
Yeah.
know, Bob? Aren't they enamel?
Yeah, they are. It's like people use either solvent-based or water-based. The most popular one is the Poscar pens. Those are water-based. But people do use the Testors model paint.
Yeah.
I've used Sharpies that are solvent-based. Some people feel that the solvent-based inks work better, last longer than the water-based, but most people use the water-based.
Can you use nail polish?
Good question. I would think you can. I don't see why not. Kevin?
The only challenge with nail polish is it has a lot of acetone in it, and that smell is it dissipates
Toxic.
pretty quickly. I mean, it would be the right thing to do, but you don't want to alienate the workers when you put her back in there that they smell her and reject her. But I know people do use it. I think you'd be safer with the other paint pens, but sometimes, depending on the brand, which is why the Pascar that Bob mentioned and the Testors are usually two tried and true ones, because the chemical version of that is not too volatile to the point where it has so much toluene and acetone. I think are the two products they use in nail polish in order to make it dry quickly and harden, and they're really pretty smelly. I'll leave you with one last thought tonight, which is I posted this to my website today. I made chocolate infused honey.
Oh,
Something that I don't think would ever be something I would try, but this is special because it has it has cayenne powder. If you're familiar with the Mexican hot chocolate thing where they use cayenne, which wakes up the taste buds to taste chocolate better, you could use it,
Damn you,
just
Kevin.
leave it out. And it tells you how to do it. And
Oh,
the reason I made this, it's 1 pound of honey, which is 16 ounces. I have 15 here because you add chocolate and stuff, and that goes in a pound jar. But I used hot honey that someone gave me, Bob. That hot honey we got. And so the hot honey gives you like a sweet hot, and the cayenne gives you a little bit of a bite. And this is something they've been doing since the Mayans and the Aztecs, is putting that in. Now, if you don't want the heat hot, you just leave that out. Use regular honey and don't put the cayenne in, but the rest of it is really good. Make sure you use Ghirardelli, because that makes really good chocolatey flavor. And if you want to get super fancy, you could buy nibs, chocolate cocoa nibs, and put them in the bottom of your jar. That's what some people recommend. And as they sit and soak, it steeps the chocolate flavor out of them and makes your honey even better. But let me tell you, peanut butter and chocolate honey sandwiches, oh yeah. So good. So go to bkcorner.org and click on recipes. It's the first one there. Just a little
That
something
looks
to share with you as we
amazing.
close it down. So, yeah. All right.
And
Thanks, everybody.
And by the way, cayenne pepper is extremely good for us. Opens up like our blood. If you're having pre-heart attack and everything, it's very medicinal as well. So
Yeah.
what you have created is, not only delicious, but it's actually very good too. So it looks amazing.
Yeah. It's really good.
Thank you for sharing.
My pleasure. All right, everybody. I will post meeting notices for the next meeting. I got to figure out the dates, but look online and look for a message. And thanks for coming out tonight. If you know anybody that's starting beekeeping and they're, looking for some guidance and advice, you can tell them that this is a place they can come and ask whatever questions they want. Be happy to have them. And thanks for coming out tonight. And good luck this week and the next couple of weeks till we talk to you again. And thanks for taking the time to be in the program.
Thank
Awesome.
you,
Thank you very
Kevin.
much.
And thanks to Bob and to Vanessa and the others who come out and support us, answer your questions.
Yay. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good night, everyone.
Have a great night.
Good night.
Thanks much.
Bye-bye.